Listeners, ready. Gladiators, ready. 3, 2, 1. It's time for a Gladiators Takeover. On this episode, we're going to look back at 4 gladiators that came on the show to talk about their rise to the challenge. You're going to hear what their journey was being on the hit TV show Gladiators that started back in the late 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, and it's still going on today. We're going to talk to 4 different gladiators from different countries, different time periods of the show, and they're going to share their journey and experience and what that show did for them and what was exciting about it. So come on the journey and let's look back and remember in the 4.5 years that we've been doing this show, over 350 episodes, what was it like to be a gladiator on TV? Stop right there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss out on all future content. Make sure you also follow on all our social media platforms. You'll see even personalized content on there. Hopefully you enjoy. Stay tuned for more on this episode. In this section, we're going to talk about Lori Fedrick. You may know her as Ice. Ice was one of those powerful, strong gladiators that kicked butt every single time she got out there on the field. Ice was going to tell you about her journey and magical moments that happened in her time as a gladiator. So sit back and relax and enjoy this section of Ice. Remember, the full episode will be listed in the description below.
I have a couple of them, actually. I really do. One of them was competing at Madison Square Gardens in New York. We were on tour. We sold out the entire arena. I mean, that memory alone of walking out and just having Madison Square Gardens filled, and you could just hear the roar of the people. I mean, that's when you just kind of got chills all over, and you just be like, holy shit, you know? God, we made it. The other one is going over to the UK and actually competing in the international show. That was super amazing as well, because now we're going into a whole nother country to where it's like, holy shit, people know us here too.
Yeah.
You know, and so just traveling around the world, it's like, there's quite a few moments, you know, that you just kind of have to pinch yourself and go, yes, I'm here. It's real. It's happening, you know? And then meeting the people, obviously meeting people along the way, just, you know, it's awesome.
Talking about meeting people, you see nowadays with you and your projects that you're involved with.
In a company and you work in a corporation, you're going to have certain people that you gel with, certain people that you really enjoy going to lunch with, or possibly going out on the weekend with. The gladiators were basically the same way. There are certain people that you gelled with and that you actually created a friendship with, and then others that you still really liked, you just never really hung out afterwards, you know? Dallas and I, we remained extremely close friends. We talk all the time, even though she's in Florida. She's one of my best friends. I mean, Zap also is another, you know, good friend of mine that we've kept in contact with. And the guys like Nitro and Laser, the ones that really from the very beginning, we've kept a very close friendship with. And it's like almost like a family kind of thing. And that's what's been really amazing. Even like when I said, okay, guys, I'm doing my podcast. I want you on. I want to interview you. I want to get to know who you are. I want the people to get to know who you are. And the ones that stepped up, I mean, those are the ones that go, I'll do it all day long. Thank you. Yeah. I'll do it all day long. You know, and then there are some that go, and you're just like, okay, I understand. So it's really interesting. It is really interesting to where when you start to do a project, you realize very quickly, kind of like who's your you know, your go-to, you know.
Definitely. And I think one of our first episodes we featured on YouTube was the American Gladiator Rocket. But Rocket's story is interesting, where he was a contender first on American Gladiators in 2008, and then the next season He became a gladiator because he won his contender season. So we go back to Evan Dollard. You may know him as Rocket, and talk about his journey as a gladiator and what was special about that moment. Remember, you can listen to the full episode in the description below. So sit back and relax. Enjoy the episode with Evan Dollard, but you may know him as Rocket.
I mean, there was a lot of excitement, a lot of adrenaline. The episode, the way that they structured that first season, and probably the second to memory, is that I'm trying to remember. I think there were 24 athletes that they had, 12 men and 12 women, and they would set up one obstacle, and anyone that was competing in that obstacle in the first round of competition from any episode competed on it. So you'd have 8 rounds of this obstacle. So the first one was the gauntlet. And I remember I was waiting on set, we were shooting in LA, which was just exciting in and of itself. My dad and my brother were in the audience, so that was really cool. And of course, the hosts were Hulk Hogan and Layla Ali. And so Layla Ali is doing this interview with me on the set, like staring down the gauntlet. And I'm like, it's just all very surreal. There's a bunch of lights, bunch of camera. I'm thinking about what my face is doing. You know, my brother and my dad are watching, and then they bring out the gladiators. And the first time the gladiators come out, they're doing their old showboating, flexing and stuff. And then some director calls cut and like, okay, go back to one. Let's bring them out, the gladiators again, because they didn't like the first take. So then they bring out the gladiators again, and they're like, Rrr. And I'll be honest, I think the second time the gladiators came out, I'm like, oh god, this is just a little bit of show business here. So I'm not scared about these guys because they can turn it off like that and turn it back on just with the camera. It was still very intimidating because the gauntlet was the event that terrified me the most, because it's a very small space. They got these big pads, they're huge dudes, and they're just trying to get in your way. And once your momentum is stopped in that small area, it's hard to accelerate again. But yeah, all the emotions. It was excitement. There was adrenaline. It was like I wanted to do well. I was super hyped up, and I really was. I was thinking about like, what is my face doing something weird? Like I didn't know how to listen to Layla Ali and be like, be normal, be normal. Like I don't know, it's weird.
It's probably the actor in you. It's like, hold on.
It was, yeah. Well, they were very careful in the wording throughout season 1 that it's the chance to become an American gladiator. So when they finally had, there was no real certainty, at least for me, until they officially cast the American season 2 Gladiator. And we were part of that whole process too. They again, months, maybe 3 months after, maybe even 2-3 months after we had filmed season 1, because it was a hit, we immediately got back to filming season 2, and they flew us out to LA and put us up in a hotel, and we went through sort of tryouts together, which consisted just mainly being on set and, okay, you're going to climb the wall today as fast as you can. You're going to do vertigo and see how you do. We're going to time each other. And they set up a makeshift hang tough, and you're going to go against each other. And there were physical exams, medical, all that. And ultimately, I don't know, character tests, I'm sure. Because there were some athletes, prospective gladiators from that week that did not get cast. And so I was tentative. I didn't want to get excited about it if it wasn't going to happen. But once I did find out that they were having me on the show, I thought, yeah, like it was incredibly exciting, because now I got to be on both sides of it. And this dream and this momentum of being on television, which is something, again, like we talked about, I always wanted to be, like, since high school, even in middle school, like the acting thing. And then once I got an agent, I'm like, how can I do this all the time? Because it's so much fun. And it just so happened that because I had a background in athleticism, in addition to the acting and the auditioning that I had been in the practice of doing in Chicago, that sort of my interests met in such a way where I could do something that I truly enjoyed on a platform that really excited me. And to have that opportunity to do it a second season in a different role was awesome.
We're going to go all the way back to one of our first few episodes with Warren Furman. You may know him as the Gladiator Ace. Ace came midway into the UK Gladiator scene, and he was a force to be threatened with. He talks about his journey in becoming Ace and the experience that it taught him. He talks about what he learned about the opportunity and his favorite events and how the actual format worked. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Warren Furman, you may know him as Ace, to talk about his story. Remember, you can listen to the full episode in the description below.
Been in the YWCA, and the next day, a stretched Mercedes with blacked out windows pulled up into the car park, took me to Heathrow Airport, where I literally had a carrier bag full of my belongings, flew me first class Air Mauritius to the Gladiators training camp, where I was filming for the next month. We filmed little clips for the show there. We laid on the beach of a day. They said it was a training camp. It was more dating the female glads, really. It was like I died and gone to heaven. It was incredible. I was like the beautiful Indian Ocean, beautiful women laid around you, free food, free everything that you wanted. They would give me envelopes every day called per diems. I'm like, what's this? It's just full of Mauritius money that I could spend. I was like, this is incredible. And then the first shows that I did was Wembley Arena. So I did some live shows in Wembley Arena. And so I it was like I died and gone to heaven. So at that point, I remember laying on the beach in Mauritius, looking up on a clear night at the stars, and just really appreciating creation. The beautiful warm sand beneath me, the gentle lapping of the waves, the just beauty of the heavens. And I thought, if there is a God, I've been told all my life there isn't, but if there is, he must love me. I must be doing something right, because who has a life like this? Who has a life like this? So, phenomenal, Alex. It really was.
When you got to the location, did you already have your name already picked out, or was it not until that show started, and then that's when you became Ace?
Well, they told you that you could think of some names. But if I said to you now, Alex, right, okay, you're a gladiator, so you've got that job, you know that you're going to tell it, now think of some names. It's almost impossible, because you're like, well, so I started going to the other gladiators for advice, and early on they suggested Ace to me. I had a cousin called Ace, and I thought it was a rubbish name, because I'm like, you've got Warrior, you've got all these big tough names, and the Wolfman, and then Ace. It's like, well, it doesn't really strike fear into your heart, does it? I thought it's not going to give me a psychological edge. So I was very much against it to begin with. I was like, no, I'm not sure about that. And the producer, Nigel Lithgow and Ken Warwick, they're a big producer in America now. Mm-hmm. They were like trying to sell it to me, and I couldn't understand why. No, they were saying it means top trump, it means leader of the pack, it means, you're the best in the pack. And I'm like, I'm not sure. And then I remember Ken Warwick saying to me, McVitie's, who make the chocolate biscuits, are bringing out an Ace biscuit. And if you take the name Ace, it comes with, I can't remember how much, something like £10,000 worth of advertising. And I said, I love the name Ace. I love that name Ace. So he had to reveal to me. So I sold out. And do you know what? I should have took the advice, because I remember other gladiators saying to me, don't sell out commercially. Show business is a business. So really, you're going to show this ideal person, this super gladiator, but it's not the real you. And so you really want to appeal to as many companies as you can to send you free stuff. So be careful when you choose your name. And I remember saying to, it was Mark Griffin, and he was Action Man now. He worked with Hasbro, and he was doing movies in America. So he'd done the Gladiator bit, and he'd flown to LA, and there he was, and he was living the dream, And I remember him saying to me, don't sell out. And he was really adamant. And I said, well, what are you moaning about? Your gladiator name is superb. And he said, well, in England it is, but in America it's not. And I was like, well, why not? And his gladiator name was Trojan.
Yup.
so you can imagine, I don't have to explain that one to you.
We don't think of a gladiator name when we think of that in America, sadly.
No, well, in England it doesn't mean that for us. And so, but I did sell out, because McVitie's End, they didn't tell me this. I took the money and thought, this is easy money. They're just giving me free money, and all I've got to do is be named after their new biscuit. Anyway, when the advert came out, the slogan for the biscuit was Ace, the incredibly thick chocolate biscuit. That didn't help a guy who speaks like me from Essex, who can't even pronounce "th." You know what I mean? I couldn't even say thick. I was like, thick, yeah, I'm the thick biscuit. So I sold out commercially, Alex, I'm afraid. As luck would have it, they discontinued their biscuits a little while later.
Whoever came up with that slogan did not think of the right thing for that.
Well, I think they knew exactly what they were doing, and I think they thought an Essex boy from, you know what I mean, from Arlo, who can't even say the word thick, he'll be perfect for this.
But at that time, you were just doing what you thought was correct. You thought maybe, okay, they're recommending this, so you had to believe in them. Over time, did you kind of think, okay, I have to now make decisions on my own, and I can listen to advice, but I have to do what's best for me?
No, I think because I had experienced so much success at that point and become so conceited, like I said to you, I was so full of myself, and the world was telling me I was a success. You know, by then I was buying property, I had lovely cars. All of a sudden, women were queuing up to date me. I was like, well, I'm a winner. I am the epitome of success. This is a celebrity culture, and I am the top of the tree. And it don't get any better than this. You know, not only, you know, do I have the money and the women and everything else, but I have the looks, I have the body. I mean, it don't get any better than this. And so nobody, frankly, could tell me anything. You know, I was so self-righteous. You know, I was freely dishing out advice. And the thing is, when you're a celebrity, and people are traders of information in this world, you know, and they want to be associated with success. So people are giving you stuff, people are telling you what you want to hear. There's nobody around you anymore in that situation who's going to tell you any truth. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I was quite lucky because my brothers are really down to earth, but they tried to tell me the truth. But again, because I was conceited, I was like, well, they must be jealous. So I need to keep them away from me. I need positive people around me, people who are blowing smoke up my backside. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So nobody could really tell you anything. But what I will say is that nobody had taught me the paradox of pleasure, which just means the more you get of something, the less it satisfies. And so, you know, left to your own devices, they become your vices. And so these things that start off as great and satisfying start becoming detrimental to your health, you know. And I noticed with the show, there were so many highs, you know, to be in front of 16 million people, 10,000 people in the arena, and then to find yourself sat at home, you know what I mean, or walking the dog. I was like, no, I need highs. So the lows really come sweeping in. So you're looking for other ways of getting high. And when you're being invited to all of the top clubs, all the openings, everyone's giving you stuff for free, it's such a roller coaster. And it's so enticing that you don't even realise some of the decisions you're making, you know, and so a lot of them started to become destructive, and as a person, like I say, nobody could really advise me. I was so full of myself that there wasn't room for anyone else. But what I will say is that once I was in show business and realised it was a business, I think my heart started to harden. I started to get really cynical. You know, in that business, it's all red carpets and glitter and sparkly. It's something far, far, far darker. And so, although they said, you know, oh, good for you, this is great for you, darling, you have all the air kisses and all that, you feel the knife going in your back when you got the next job. And I started to notice that a lot of the people who were really celebrated weren't who they said they were. You know, you'd read about in the newspapers and magazines, but really the money and fame had really corrupted them, and they were broken people, and really selling lies. A lot of it was selling lies. I was rewarded for selling lies. Newspapers, magazines would ring me up, we'll pay you this much money. What can you tell us? I've got nothing to tell you. Well, just make something up. I'm like, what is this? My dad is the most honest man I know. Hard-working man. I can make what he can make. I can make in an hour what he'll make in a month just by telling a pack of lies. So I think my heart started to really question this. You know, is this real? What's going on here? You know, and you know, I used to love Elvis Presley and stuff as well, and I just started to really think things through. Like, hang on a minute, these A-list Hollywood stars died miserably on drugs. Your Marilyn Monroe's, you know, there's reams of them that seem to get to the top, and we're still following them now, and they're dead. Mm-hmm. You know, they died miserably, and we're like, yeah, that's the epitome of success. And it's like, where does this really lead? Who am I following? And I started to notice that actually, for me to keep this big body up that I've got, I'm gonna have to carry on taking drugs. I didn't want to do that. And I also noticed the real shallowness in what I was and what I'd become. I wasn't interested in anybody else or that. So I was just interested in me. And so meanwhile, you know, my brothers and friends had moved on and they'd settled down in families. They were having kids, starting their own businesses, security in a job. And when Gladiators ended, I was like Krusty the Clown. You know, I could just turn up in a Lycra outfit with a stick and say, "Hey kids, here I am." That was about it. And then hope someone was going to pay me a couple of £1,000 for doing that. So I thought, actually, I'm becoming a joke. You know, this is it's not what I thought it was going to be. So my heart was really searching at that point. I knew that on the outside I looked successful, everything looked right, but I knew inside I was spiritually bankrupt, and spiritually empty, actually, completely empty. So it started off feeling everything, but then nothing. Again, remember I said to you when I had the BMX and everyone called me poser because, you know, this BMX was designed to do stunts on. So it was, you know, you had to be flash. But I wouldn't do any stunts. I remember trying to do one bunny up, and I remember that Shimano pedal firing up, hitting me in the shin so hard that I thought, I'm never doing another stunt on this. And so it was really the same at Gladiators. The best Gladiators were the ones that took the biggest risks. But I could tell people were getting seriously hurt on the show. We'd already had a broken neck by the time I'd started. I'd seen people screaming. And actually, I had a dream one night that a whole rig fell on top of me and the producer and killed the producer. And I think that was a warning because whenever there was a risky game, I was really risk averse. I remember the Andrew Norgate, who was the organiser of the games, he would roster you what games you were playing. And so quite early on, the ones that I could see had the massive risk, I'd try and wiggle out because I'd think, actually, this is great that I'm on this show, but this show's going to end, and I don't want to be in a wheelchair when it does. And I could see people already in wheelchairs, you know. So I always looked for the games that were high octane, that looked amazing on camera, but where you didn't have to risk breaking your back every time you played it. And so the best games for me were games at height, actually. The reason for that is there was always a net you could fall in, and the net's a nice thing to fall in, you know, because you don't really fall on your head and all your body weight crashes on the top. And so Pendulum, the game you mentioned, was brilliant. And it might have looked difficult, but if you stayed near the top of the ball, you was fine. And so all you'd have to do is get your contestant to go underneath. As soon as he goes down there, you've got to pull him off there. Gravity's going to do it for you. He's got two forces.
Stop right there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss out on all future content. Make sure you also follow on all our social media platforms. You'll see even personalized content on there. Hopefully you enjoy. Stay tuned for more on this episode. We now go over to Australia. And you may know her as Barbara Kendall, but in the Gladiator world, you know her as Rebel. Rebel talks about her journey as a gladiator, and with that moment, how it changed her life and what she got out of it. She didn't know what TV would be like for her, and how that played a huge role in her journey. Rebel talks about her experience as a gladiator and her favorite events. So sit back and relax and enjoy Barbara Kendall, but you may know her as Rebel. Remember, you can listen to the full episode below in the description.
Not really. I didn't do a great deal of research on the other countries. I did know it was pretty big. I think I watched a couple of shows from England and a couple of shows from America. But back in those days, I didn't realise there were other countries doing it as well, you know, like Russia, etc. I had no idea. We just learned as we got onto the job, basically. Yeah, training was minimal. They just threw us into it and away you went.
A question a lot of people like to ask is, how did you get your name Rebel? Talk about that opportunity and how did that come about?
Yeah, so we were allowed to choose our own name, and I think I came up with a couple of others. Don't ask me what they were now, but they didn't like it. And they said, I think I probably wanted to be like a halo or an angel or something girly like that. But if they didn't like it, they said, no, we've got a name for you. And they said, no, we want to call you Rebel. And my first reaction inside my head was, oh, no, I don't like Rebel. And then I went home and thought about it. And I thought, well, what are you doing right now? You're rebelling against the name of Rebel. So maybe that does suit you. You know, you've always been somebody that, you know, followed your heart, made your own pathway. So, and Rebel is a name that you could play up to. It's you could be a good rebel or a bad rebel or naughty or a nice rebel or have, parts of that character. So yeah, I played all of those things within Rebel. Sometimes I was naughty, sometimes I was nice. Most of the time I was just a bit cheeky. I used to run around the auditorium and hold up my hand to all the kids after each show, and I used to reach over to high five me, and right when they were about to touch my hand, I used to pull it away and say, "Nah, give me $5." So I used to go, "Give me 5," and they'd reach over and then I'd pull my hand away. So, "No, give me $5." So I was cheeky. The kids loved it. And all in all, I think Rebel was a really good name for me. There were a few I enjoyed. I really enjoyed doing Powerball. I used to sort of love sprinting and then launching myself at the contender and slamming them down to the ground. That was really good fun. I used to also really enjoy doing Atmosphere. That was running inside a 400-kilo steel spherical ball. It was particularly good fun when they used to start the ball high up in the corners of the arena on a ramp, and you'd have 4 men on each corner of the ball, and they would rock it back and forward until the whistle blew, and then they used to push the ball, and it used to crum, 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 go down the ramp and go flying into the middle. That was really good fun. You'd have to run fast. You usually had a helmet on and then a head camera as well, so that sort of, you had to get your balance right with that. But those two would probably have been my favorite. Also, I really used to like doing suspension bridge, which was very much like Duel, except for you were on a bridge that sort of sunk down and back up again, and it was wobbly. So again, you used to have a lot of balance and a lot of upper body strength as well. Yeah. So I think those 3 were my favorite.
Gladiators is an international phenomenon. Every single person that has watched it remembers the signature events, the signature gladiators, and the feel that you get watching it. Gladiators still happens today with international shows happening all the time. We are so excited to have these gladiators come on the show and talk about their journey, because their journey is not just about being on TV, not being athletes, but the bigger picture and what being a gladiator means to them. We're going to have more gladiators on the show, and I hope to interview more to share their story. So, hopefully you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you check out the full episodes on audio or on video platforms. Remember, what are you going to do to rise to your own challenge, just like the gladiators? Have a great day. We'll see you next time.